are on our fourth lesson, I believe, of our prayer. It's a there's a lot to learn about prayer in Judaism, because prayer is a big part of Judaism. As we said a few times ago, it wasn't always like that. Prayer was a very personal thing that you did usually in time of distress, especially in the times of the Bible, because the way you would worship God is not through prayer, was through sacrifices and pilgrimage. You would come to the temple, bring a sacrifice, you would have a feast together with a priest, and that's how you would do it. And then we see that once the temple is destructed, it's really a very clear choice for Judaism. Now we can see that in retrospect, but that was the geniusy of the sages, the rabbis back then, that understood that if you don't find a substitute for if you don't find a substitute
that works
for the sacrifices, not only that, the way you worship God is going to disappear, like really the relationship between man and God is going to disappear, and there's going to be no Jewish religion. So we realized last week that setting times of prayer every time of the day, 3 times a day, etc., is really a fixed way to ensure the survival of Judaism, no less. That's the project of prayer. That's the meaning of it, as we saw last time.
Were there any other groups of people who
the Muslims
did prayer,
do
or we know they did sacrifices?
well, the Muslims, that's what they do.
No, so in Judaism there were different sects that were doing prayer. Okay, for example, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, we find the sects that were down there in Qumran and the Dead Sea, and they had different prayers as well. Also, they were prayers that were probably said by the priests as they were making the offerings. They were saying them on behalf of the whole community. But in an institutionalized way of prayer, something that you have to say is really the invention, I guess, of the Jewish faith. Later on, we know that Christianity took that form, and also the Islam, they actually took the form that you also have to pray 5 times a day. And actually that's, do you know the story of how they got to the prayer, the 5 prayers a day in Islam?
No.
Okay, I need to tell you that because it's very well connected to Judaism. It's not a class about Islam, but here's a good example that when Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, went up to heaven from Al-Aqsa, from the Dome of the Rock. So I think there are I forgot the whole story. I think there are 7 skies that he went up through, and and he sees all these prophets on the way going up, and in one of them he sees Moses, okay, and they say hello to each other, and and he goes up all the way to the last one, and he meets God, and God gives him the commandment of prayer, and God says you need to pray 500 times a day, okay? And Muhammad is like, oh my God, what are we gonna do, So, and Muhammad's very obedient. He goes down and very depressed, and Moses sees him and tells him what's going on? Why are you so depressed? As God said, we got to pray 500 times a day. There's, we won't be able to do anything. We won't be able to work, be with our wives, have kids or anything. That's all we're going to do all day. So Moses tells him, listen, that's a negotiating starting point. Go back to, I'm a little bit paraphrasing, but I'm serious. But if you look up this story in the Quran, you'll see the story. Okay, So Muhammad goes up and he says to God, listen, like it's just too much. What are we going to do all day? If we only pray, we're going to die. We won't have time to eat or do anything else. So God says, okay, you could do 50 times a day. Muhammad's very obedient, doesn't even think he can, negotiate again with God. I got it from 500 to 50. That's amazing. He goes down, but Moses asks him, he's like, no, what happened? So he says, well, he got it down to 50. I still don't know what we're going to do, because 50 times a day, you got to stop and all that, etc. So Moses tells him, no, that's really not good. You have to go back and negotiate again. And he goes back, and for 50, he goes down to 40 and to 10. And then he goes back last time, and God says, it's 5, and don't come back to me again, okay? So that's how they got to the number of 5 prayers, thanks to Moses, who told Muhammad how to negotiate it. Why?
They should have left it at 500. It would be less trouble.
Right.
Wouldn't it make more sense that it was Abraham who told him to negotiate rather than Moses?
But I think Moses is considered by Islam as sort of like the prophet that received the Torah and had a direct relationship with God, and also someone who negotiated with God, because Moses is described in the Bible a few times negotiating with God about different things. Okay, so but they took the story from Abraham for the 50 righteous, and going down to 40 and going down to 30 and to 20. They took that story with Abraham and God and negotiating, and they implemented it into Moses. So it's interesting how that story was built. Bottom line is, we see other religions also adopting this concept that if you have a fixed form of prayer, okay, because also in Islam, it's like you have to say a certain text. It's much shorter, it's much quicker than the Jewish prayer, but it is 5 times a day. And then last time, what we also saw is we saw the main prayer, which is the Tfilah, okay? And we said there are either 18 blessings if it's a weekday, it's 7 blessings if it's Shabbat, it's 9 blessings if it's Rosh Hashanah. And we also saw that every prayer, every tefillah, Amidah, when we stand, has 3 opening prayers, okay, and 3 closing prayers, and the sandwich in between is sort of like, it changes if it's Shabbat, if it's a weekday. And we actually read the prayers, and we saw what we were asking for and what are the desires that every human being wants, okay? Health, parnasa, right? Making ends meet at the end of the day, having rain for the crops, God to take care of us, connection with our history, God answering our prayers, etc., etc. And then the last prayer, the ending prayer we saw is always in Judaism. What's the ending prayer in Judaism for everything that we talked about last week? The prayer for peace. Okay, that's the ultimate longing in Judaism, is for peace, a worldwide peace, and every prayer ends with that. Like the Kaddish ends with Oseh Shalom B'Momav, okay, asking God to make peace upon us and the whole world. So that was one major prayer that was institutionalized after the destruction of the temple. The second one is the Shema. Okay, the Shema, which in Hebrew translates into English into listen, okay, or hear. Listen, O Israel, hear, O Israel. Shema Israel is really a foundational major prayer that has a lot of history to it. And it's in the Bible, it's in the book of Deuteronomy, but over there it's not fixed as a prayer, it's just fixed as a text. But later on, the rabbis took that and made it a foundational prayer in Judaism that you're obligated to say twice a day, when you wake up, which is the morning prayer, and when you go lie down, which is the evening prayer. Okay, and some say it means when you go to bed, you're also supposed to say the Shema. The Shema is considered the ultimate prayer in Judaism. A lot of kids know it. I see little kids here in pre-K. They already know the prayer. I understand parents sing it with them every night before they go to bed.
Mhm.
Has anyone done that here with their
My-
kids, or did your
Yeah.
parents did it with you? Yeah.
No, my youngest daughter did it with her boys.
Uh-huh. Yeah. So different people do that as well, and it's very, very famous. There's a famous story in the Holocaust. That during the Holocaust, a lot of kids were rescued by taking them to monasteries. Okay, and they were hidden there by priests. And after, when the Holocaust ended, okay, so many of them, returned the Jewish kids. Not all of them returned the Jewish kids, because many of them said, they're better off with us. Okay, they're better off staying a Christian. Either they thought about the safety of the kids, or they knew the parents were dead anyhow. And they knew, the state of the Jewish people at that time. There was no state yet. So they said they're better off staying here. Sometimes it was because of anti-Semitism, like they better stay Jewish. The different reasons why. But there's this rabbi, this famous rabbi, Eliezer, I forgot his last name. And he would walk from monastery to monastery, and he would knock on the door, and he says, "Hi, I want to see if there are any Jewish kids here." And they said, "No, there's no Jewish kid." He says, "Yeah, but still, I want to see, I want to make sure." And he walked, and he saw all these kids, all shaved, all taken care of. And after a few years, little kids, they're already speaking the language, saying the prayers. So he started singing in a loud voice, "Shema Israel." And all these little kids started answering him back, "Adonai Eloheinu." And he said, "Oh, you're Jewish. And he collected all the Jewish kids and took them. And he did that in one monastery after the other, and rescued hundreds of Jewish kids. So this is how powerful the Shema prayer is. Even now, it's very sad, on October 7th, and the attack in all these kibbutzim. So, they were, the Hamas terrorists were there for hours and hours. And at a certain point, many of them know Hebrew. There's, they learned the Hebrew as a tactic of an enemy. And they started knocking on doors and say, "We are the IDF, we're the Israeli army." And people came out and they shot them. So people didn't go out of their rooms, their safe rooms. They stayed locked there, because they were afraid that they were afraid these are Hamas terrorists that are, pretending to be IDF soldiers. And at a certain point, there's a story of this soldier that came to rescue, and he said, I'm not opening, and he started reciting the Shema. And then when the Jew on the other side of the door answered him with Shema, so he knew that, okay, that's as far as Hamas would go. They wouldn't learn, the Shema and pronounce it in a perfect way. So then they knew it's safe. So the Shema also saved people, that were able to recite the Shema. Shema is also a prayer that people died at martyrdom. Okay, when there's a famous saying by Rabbi Akiva that says that when the Romans came to execute him, because they found that he was teaching Torah, so as they were executing, and as he was taking his last breath, he was reciting the Shema. Okay, and parts of the Shema is love thy Lord with all your heart and all your might, and all your energy, etc. And his students that were there, they were forced to watch. It says, Rabbi, even when your soul is being taken away, okay, you're reciting the Shema and praising God and saying love, how much you love God. And he said, even more so now, my whole life I was waiting for this moment. Where could I prove that when I say ve'ahavta, love the Lord as much, with all my heart and all my might and all my body, etc., when will I ever get to fulfill that? And now I'm able to say that as I die. And there's evidence of other soldiers throughout history, that Jewish soldiers that as they were dying were reciting the Shema. Actually, at the bedside of someone who's about to pass away, it is customary to also say the Shema, either that they say it or you say it with them. So it sort of like helps them part to the next world. So that's the power of the Shema. There are many songs about the Shema, and it's very famous. Now I wanted to look, I forgot to tell you to take the prayer books, because now every time I want to sort of like go and through that.
A quick question.
Yeah, sure.
So, when did this originate? Your book itself as a compilation?
The Siddur was never written at the beginning. It was all prayers that were transmitted orally from generation to generation. But as prayers became more and more, they started to compile them, okay? And the evidence that we have of a first prayer book is, I believe, from the 9th century or the 10th century, okay? That's the first prayer book that we have evidence of, but it doesn't mean that that's when it was written. It was written before even. It was compiled even before, but it was only written much later, okay? Okay, I don't think it was written in the 9th century when the first one appears. It probably been written even 100, 200 years before, okay? But, manuscripts and the way it survives, that's sort of like what we have.
It's stable since then? Yes.
Yeah, since then, as I said last time, if you hold the one from the 10th century, it's going to be like this. And now we got to something like this, because every generation adds more and more prayers, but no one ever takes out any of the prayers. And unlike the Torah, now we have to understand the concept, because this is an important question. The Torah cannot be changed. We can't, the 24 books in the Torah, 5 books of Moses, we can't all sit here and write whatever, even if we write the best book for the Torah and it's a bestseller and billions of people are going to buy our book, even then we can't add it to the Bible. That's it. The Bible is done, it's sealed, okay? And no one can ever change one word in it. Even if we don't like it, we don't like the text, what it says. A lot of people don't like a lot of the text that's in the Bible. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't change it. The prayer book, however, is flexible because it's prayer, something that is evolving, that is changing. And the ultimate proof is that there are new prayers that every generation adds, okay? But unlike the Bible, you could take out prayers, and there are some prayers that were not left, okay, in the prayer book. It's been edited throughout the years.
Well, even for all the Siddurim that we've used in conservative synagogues, if you go back, you can see.
Yeah, there are different changes. There are different prayers and different changes. So prayer is something much more flexible, much more evolving, because that's the nature of prayer. Yeah.
How is it, I always wondered about this, how is it determined which prayers you stand for and which you sit down for?
That's a very good question. The only prayer you have to stand for is the Amidah. Okay, the Amidah, it means standing. Okay, and it also means like the ultimate, the prayer. So that part you need to do standing. Okay, all the other prayers could be done sitting. Some of them have to be done sitting. Okay, like the Shema, for example, you need to be sitting down. Although I know that there's some Reform congregations where you stand up for the Shema, but that's not the traditional custom.
What's the reason behind that you have to sit?
That you have to sit? Well, usually standing shows more of a respect. Okay, the reason that you stand at the Amidah is because it's considered you're praying in front of the king, the holy king God, and you're talking to him directly. Okay, during like the prayers that we saw last week, it's like direct asking God, God, please give us. So when you're standing and talking to a king and asking things, so you need to be standing.
I thought
The
the idea was that when you say the Shema, if you are already standing, you stay there. If you're already sitting, you stay seated.
Well, there's a debate in Judaism about it. There are different.
Why not? You're saying everything else.
Yeah. So some people say you could walk when you're saying the Shema because it says "Belechtecha b'derech." As you walk, you recite it. Some people say you need to sit, but standing alone, most rabbinic authorities say you're not supposed to be doing. Okay, there's just one rabbi that says that you're supposed to be
What
standing.
about the Elenu? In order to bow, you have to be standing.
Right, the Aleinu, I think I mentioned that a few weeks ago, is a prayer that was only done on Rosh Hashanah, okay, once a year, okay? And that prayer is really to make God sort of like the king of the universe, which is the ultimate idea of Rosh Hashanah, okay, that God is the king of the world. And then they just liked that prayer, and so they would stand then, okay? And then they liked the prayer, said they added also on Yom Kippur, says it like, if you do it on Rosh Hashanah, how can you not do it on the holiest day of the year, on Yom Kippur? Okay, and then some rabbis, you know what? Shabbat is also important. Why don't we also add that, to Shabbat? Now there are 54 Shabbatot a year, and then some smart guy said, you know what? Every day is important. Let's do it every day, and let's do it every prayer of the day, and that's how. But at the beginning, it was only once a year.
Oh my
This
God.
is like a good example how prayers get added throughout history, slowly, more and more.
Well, whenever the ark is open, we're speaking.
Right, that's true. Yeah, and I want to say that there are different traditions also. Every synagogue has their own traditions about when you stand and when you sit down. So there's no one rule of how to do it. The only one thing you have to do is during the Amidah, you have to be standing, unless you can't for different reasons. Yeah.
Is the Shmona Esrei of prayer included? Is part of the Amidah?
Yeah, Shmoneh Esrei is the Tfilat Amidah.
Okay.
Is the
Was
Amidah
it
prayer.
ever being attempted to change it?
Yeah. There were attempts, and I will talk about those attempts later on. So I wanted you to open the prayer book. Oh yeah, then there are a few more up there as well.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There are four more.
We can share.
There are four more.
Second down. Second.
Yeah, all the way up.
Next to the blue book. Keep
Left
it
there.
Yeah.
So please open on page 39A. Okay, I realize that our friends at home don't have a siddur. We need to get one for you. Maybe something that we could put online or something. Oh, okay, good. If you don't have it home, make sure till next time to get one, because we're going to continue looking at the siddur. Okay, so you see the headline here, evening service, the Shema and its blessings. So when I say Shema, okay, as a prayer, I don't just mean the passage from the Bible, which is the Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. I mean a set of prayers, which is called Shema and its blessings. Okay, so the Shema has two blessings before, then the Shema, and then in the evening it has two blessings after. Okay, and also the Shema is made of three different passages from the Bible as well. So there's two before, 3 in the middle, which is Shema and the Bible passages, and 2 at the end. That's for the evening. For the morning, there's just 1 at the end. So it would be 2 at the beginning, 3 in the middle, and 1 at the end. Okay? And it's important to understand that structure, because when we say Shema, we don't just mean the passage from the Bible, we also mean the blessings. And the blessings are, the first blessing is the changing of times, okay, which you see at 39a, where it says the first bracha, the first blessing before the Shema, the coming of evening light. And this talks about the change of lights. And as we go from daytime into nighttime, and how God arranges the stars and the places in the sky, who creates day and night, who rolls light before darkness and darkness from light. What does it mean to roll light before darkness and darkness from light?
Or sunrise, sunset, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
It's just the hours that pass, the time that passes.
Right, exactly. I've once heard a magnificent lesson by Rabbi Elliot Dorff, a great scholar from Los Angeles, the American Jewish University, that says that we use the term roll, okay, because in Greek philosophy, okay, and it's interesting to see how a Greek philosophy term came into our prayer. The sky sort of like roll, okay? That's the way the astronomers figured out how the world is built. That, you know, there's day and it just rolls like a curtain roll or something like that. Someone sort of like pulls the curtain, and now we have suddenly nighttime. And then nighttime goes and it rolls, okay, into daytime. So that rolling, someone's up there rolling the sky, is the image that they used also here in the prayer. So it's interesting to see
That's
that
very
influence.
Egyptian. In Egyptian mythology, there's the story of the beetle, the dung beetle, rolling a ball of dung across the sands, and that represents the sun moving across.
Oh, okay. So that concept exists also in other cultures. That's nice. The second prayer is on page 40. Okay. And that prayer is God who loves the people of Israel, and how the people of Israel got all the, the Torah and the mitzvot, the commandments, the statutes and the laws, and how we love fulfilling his God's obligations to us. And that's the second blessing before the Shema. And then on page 41, we have the famous Shema. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God. Adonai is one. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. And then you recite quietly, praise be the name of the one whose glorious sovereignty is forever and ever. Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto L'Olam V'Ed. Why do we add that? Okay, because
That was a response of the people when they heard it.
yeah, exactly. So when you hear God's name, it also says that here, page 41, on the right side, praise be the name, Baruch Shem. According to the Mishnah, when God's name was pronounced by the high priest on Yom Kippur, the people would respond, Baruch Shem Kvod Malchuto L'Olam V'Ed. Praise be the name of the one whose glorious sovereignty is forever and ever. And it is normally not recited out loud in order not to interrupt the flow of biblical text, though the memory of how it was recited in the temple remains with us in a whisper. Okay? So that's sort of like a remnants of something that was done in the temple.
So
And
why
now
do we-
comes,
Why do we do that on Yom Kippur? We do it aloud. Is it just conservatives?
no, everywhere you do it aloud. Everywhere you do it aloud. And that's sort of like when it was down out loud in the temple, everyone did that phrase, so we're sort of like imitating that as well. And now comes the beautiful text of you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all that is yours. These words that I command you this day shall be taken to heart. Teach them again and again to your children. Speak of them when you sit in your home, when you walk on your way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a symbol above your eyes. Inscribe them upon the doorposts of your home and on your gates. Okay, so this beautiful passage really says that all these commandments, all these laws are something that we don't just do, in the morning and that's it. We need to do it everywhere we go. It needs to follow us. It needs to be basically be what we do all day. Okay, when we walk, when we pray, when we eat, when we work, all these things, we always have to constantly remind ourselves of our Jewish tradition and Jewish faith. And the mitzvot, the commandments, are really the way you do it. Okay. Yeah.
Is that the very last sentence, inscribe them upon your doorpost? Is this in any way incorporated into the mezuzah?
Yeah, beautiful.
Is that part of it?
So bind them a sign upon your hand. That's the tefillin, okay, that you put on, okay, and symbol above your eyes, okay, that's the head tefillin, okay, and inscribe them upon the doorposts of your homes, on your gates is the mezuzah, okay. Now, it's very interesting because it doesn't say tefillin and it doesn't say mezuzah. It just implies, right? It's like, that's not a bad interpretation, but if you go to the Samaritans, which are the ancient Samaritans in their traditions, and they're considered to be even before, the rabbinic traditions, they actually, if you go to their home, it actually says the Shema. They write the Shema on their doorposts.
Oh.
Okay? It's inscribed in the stone. Okay? And it makes more sense, because that's what it says. It says, inscribe them upon the doorposts of your homes. So you actually have to write it down. You don't put it on a parchment and hang it out, which is sort of like what you do, but maybe the Jewish way is like, okay, I got to move a home. Maybe maybe I'm thrown away to exile and I got to flee really quickly. So I take the mezuzah and it's easier to take away. Yeah.
Because the mezuzah and tefillin designated specifically or created specifically, or did they borrowed from the religious other things?
No, these are things that are specific to the Jewish faith.
They were designed specifically.
Yeah. We don't have evidence of other faith, not that I know.
So mezuzah could be from the 6th century, 5th century?
Mezuzah we have from way before.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Well, could it also be that there were so many times where you were afraid for your life if you were Jewish? So if you had a sign, Hebrew writing above your door,
right, would sort of like mark you down.
It would be hidden a little bit.
Yeah, right. That's true, but if it's commandment, it's a commandment. By the way, the tefillin date back to more than 2,000 years ago, and we actually have archaeological evidence of the tefillin of Bar Kokhba, okay, on Masada, and down on Masada, they actually found a set of tefillin.
Animal skins, probably.
The whole thing, yeah. It's amazing. Tiny tefillin.
So this prayer really postdates the mezuzah and the tefillin. This prayer
predates it.
predates.
Yeah, predates.
Before,
yeah.
How about the tzitzit?
Tzitzit we'll get to in a moment. Okay, that's really the next two passages. Go to page 42.
A question on the,
Yeah.
is writing on the doorpost in any way related to the 10th plague where they had to put the blood on the door?
Right, so on Passover, what the Samaritans do, okay, they actually take the blood of, until today, they do a sacrifice of the goat, okay? And if you go there on Passover, or a few weeks after our Passover, or sometimes a few weeks before. They don't have the exact same calendar like the Jewish calendar. They have a different calendar. So they see Passover at a different date. They slaughter a goat, okay, and they take the blood and they actually put it on the doorpost on Passover, which is really the biblical commandment of what you're supposed to be doing.
Gotta be careful with that, because a lot of our sports heroes are called goats.
Oh.
That's the
Greatest of all time.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
The goat was a lot more affordable than a bullet.
Okay, was there another question? Yeah. So on page 42, we have the other two passages of the Shema, right? Because we said we have 3 passages. The second passage is from Deuteronomy 11, 13 to 21. And it goes like this: if you will hear and obey the mitzvot that I command you this day, to love and serve Adonai your God with all your heart and all your soul, then I will grant the rain for your land in season, rain in autumn and rain in spring. You shall gather in your grain and wine and oil. I will provide grass in your fields for your cattle, and you shall eat and be satisfied. Take care lest your heart be tempted and you stray and serve other gods and bow to them. Then Adonai's anger will flare up against you, and God will close up the sky so that there will be no rain, and the earth will not yield its produce. You will quickly disappear from the good land that Adonai is giving you. Therefore, impress these words of mine upon your heart and upon your soul. Bind them as a sign upon your hand and as a symbol above your eyes. Teach them to your children by speaking of them when you sit in your home, when you walk on your way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Inscribe them upon the doorposts of your home and on your gates. Then your days and the days of your children on the land that Adonai swore to your ancestors to give them will be as many as the days that the heavens are above the earth. Okay, so here in this passage, there's a certain way of theology, which is very interesting, because it says, if you follow God's way, you'll benefit and you'll do great. If you don't, you're in big trouble. Okay, God's going to bring his wrath upon you. This theology is actually states that it's a fact that that's what happens, that good people get good stuff, good crop, etc., and bad people suffer and they lose crop and etc. However, when we look at the world,
It should only be
it's a
so.
different picture. Yeah,
It should
right.
only be so.
Okay.
I've never liked that part, and I don't read it because it's not true, or it's, history shows that isn't the case, and particularly when we had the Holocaust, all the innocents. So the idea that just because you do all these things will bring good, it hasn't
Did you
passed
ever
like
read The
that.
Lottery?
I'm sorry?
Did you read the short story called The Lottery?
No.
Oh, yeah,
That'll explain
Yeah.
it to you.
yeah.
It's an American short story that has to do with sacrificing for the good of the community, for the good of the crops, for the good of the good people, for the tomorrows that are promised when you do what you're supposed to do, right? You're ordained by the higher authority. Not
Right.
true, and yet you do it anyway.
Okay, interesting. Yes.
There's also a book written by a rabbi called When Bad Things Happen to Good People.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Rabbi Harold Kushner. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That's a classic.
Both of our synagogue.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah.
That must have been. Yeah.
People standing on.
Passed away last year. Yeah. Yeah. That's a big treat to have him speak.
Well, this was
So-
Moses' discourse to the people there at the Bahrain.
Yeah. Well, so this is really, some Bible scholars says that, it's one school in the Bible that has this way of thinking, but it's not necessarily all schools, but they wanted to include it here in the Shema, okay? because they felt it is an important dogma of the Jewish religion, and although not everyone agrees with that, okay, it was important for them to show that. So I also have, my issues in grappling with these parts, but there is sort of like a sense that do we know exactly who's getting rewarded and not? If someone's doing bad things and it seems like they have wealth, does that mean they have a good life? Does that mean that they have a life that they're enjoying themselves, a life without trouble? When someone is righteous and does good deeds, but we see he's not succeeding, so well in business or something like that, is that the only indication to telling us if they have a good life or not? Okay, could there be other parameters in that sense? So they look at this text in a more metaphorical way, saying that it's nurturing your heart, that if you follow God's way with all your heart and all your soul, I will grant you rain for your land in season, rain in autumn and rain in spring. You shall gather in your grain and wine and oil, provide you grass in the fields. These are more spiritual assets that one has. Okay, these are spiritual assets that you have that, okay, sort of like when you are a good person, you follow God's ways, and in your heart, like in your conscience is clean, you're able to go through life difficulties, even when you're going down, in a better way. You're more prepared for that. And that's what it means when you walk in God's way. It's practice. It's a lot of work, blood, tears, etc. But at a certain point, you're sort of like a farmer in the field that crops, the good crop after he worked so hard. So does the righteous person crops these assets at bad times, when he's going through bad times. If you're a wicked person, okay, so the opposite happens to you, and God's anger will flare up against you. God will close up the sky, that there will be no rain, etc. That's also in a spiritual way, or in a metaphorical way, okay, that you're a bad person. You're sort of like blocking your conscience. You're always angry. You're always, constantly unhappy, etc. You don't have enough. You always want more. If you're a thief, if you're a robber, if you're a person of power, or you're accumulating more and more power, you're never restful. You're never, you're always restless. You're always irritated. You're always discontented, okay? Because you're not walking in God's way, which calls, to have a more, fulfilling and humble life. So that's a metaphorical way of looking at it. I'm not saying that's exactly what the text is saying, but some of the Hasidic approaches look at it in a more metaphorical way.
Is it possible that the you doesn't specifically refer to you? It's a kind of a generic you. It's, a concept that monks, for example, Tibetan monks or Buddhists, or Catholic nuns that are cloistered practice. They sit all day and they pray for you, not for you.
For the community.
Yeah, for the community. And in fact, isn't the history of Israel kind of and it's always been foretold that if you, the people of Israel, don't follow the line, bad things will happen. And it's cyclical.
Yeah, it's true. Again, it still doesn't solve the problematic parts of the theology, but it expands. It's not just right. It's not just about me. It's about the entire nation.
Maybe if you do good, she benefits.
Yeah, right. Okay. Good. Everyone benefits. Yeah, that's a possibility.
On the roof is, would it be so terrible? I do all these things, God, give me a little bit somehow.
Right. Look, sometimes it really is down to it. We need the crop, we need the rain, okay? And if you're in agricultural society, and if you don't get it, you are going to die. So the interpreting it as God's wrath, it also helps people get into some kind of a belief system that there is a way this world works. It's not chaotic, it's not random, okay? Because if you're in great despair, you want to rely on some kind of a system that makes sense. Now, it's true that a lot of times it doesn't work because there's hunger and still people are behaved righteously. But if you put in that into equation, it gives people some psychologically, it gives them some kind of comfort to know that they have some kind of control over these things.
It's not kind of depressing though, in the sense that, God, I want to win the lottery and I don't get it, and I'm depressed, If you take it in a more generic term, oh God, I want to win the lottery and she gets it, then it's a little happier thought, It kind of puts a more global perspective to your prayer. Right?
Yeah.
Does that
No, that makes sense. Okay, I want to look
when
at
Abraham was, when Abraham was arguing with God with Sodom and Gomorrah, and it just keeps down further how many people.
Right.
And I think it's also interpreted that even if there had been one righteous person, it would have
saved it.
Yeah.
Right, so sometimes it works. Okay, page 42 at the bottom is the third part of the Shema. That's the tzitzit. Okay, and now we get to the other element that you put up on yourself, which is the tzitzit, the talit. Okay, that has the four corners of it. Adonai said to Moses, "Speak to the people Israel and instruct them that in every generation they should put tzitzit on the corners of their garments, placing a thread of blue on the tzitzit, the fringe of each corner. That shall be your tzitzit. You shall look at it and remember all the mitzvot of Adonai and fulfill them, and not be seduced by your eyes and heart as they lead you astray. Then you will remember and fulfill all my mitzvot and be holy before your God. I am Adonai your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God." Okay, so here, this commandment of remembering God at every port, right?
I like this third.
Yeah, everywhere you go, you remember God. How do you remember? By the tzitzit that is there facing you. Now, today, there's no obligation to walk with the tzitzit because we don't have clothes that has four corners. That's why some Orthodox men put like the tzitzit on them that has four corners, and then at each fringe they put the tzitzit. Okay, but today the clothes are round, so you don't have to do it in the same way. But the concept of tzitzit, we still put it every day in the morning prayers. Okay, we put it in our morning prayers. We put the tzitzit while we put on the tefillin for the hand and the head. So all these elements that we pray with are here in the Shema and its blessings. And the tzitzit is sort of like you're walking within the world. It's like, it's like you're a walking saint in a way. So you don't sin if you have the tzitzit. At least you're not supposed to sin. There's a story of this rabbi. It's in the Talmud. I didn't make it up, okay, because it's pretty sexual graphic. But he heard about this amazing prostitute, okay, at the end of the world, and he, he had this big sexual desire, and he said, "I got to be with her." He went across the sea, okay, and she charged a lot of money, 400 golden coins, okay. He sold his whole house, sold everything, and went for the one night with this prostitute. And he goes there, okay, and she welcomes him and says, "Okay, you paid all this money." And she goes up a big ladder of there are 10 like floors of mattresses, and she goes up the big ladder and she waits for him naked at the top. He takes off all his clothes, but he remains with his tzitzit. He's a observant Jew, okay? It's like not going to take off his tzitzit. And he starts walking up the ladder, climbing up the ladder, and then suddenly the tzitzit hits him in the eye. He doesn't see, and he falls down, okay? And as he falls down, he says, "Oh my God, the tzitzit has saved me from sinning." with this woman, and she's like, "Hey, where are you?" He says, "No." He says, "Thank you very much. Keep the money." He goes back home, and she dresses up and she's asking all these people, "Who's this crazy guy?" He says, "Oh, it's this very famous rabbi from Israel." She's asking, "What's a rabbi? What's Israel? What is this thing?" He said, "They explained, listen, it's these crazy Jews. It's their religion with the tzitzit and everything, okay?" And she said, "What? He came all the way here, and I tempted him, and and he didn't want. I'm more interested in this religion. I want to see what this is all about." Okay, she goes to the local rabbis in her town. She finds the Jews there. She converts. She goes all the way to Israel and marries this rabbi in the proper way, and then they have, sex in the proper way. What a story! All the way in the Talmud. Okay, that the rabbis made up to show you the importance of wearing the tzitzit. The moral of the story is, first of all, always wear your tzitzit. Okay? And remember the commandments of God. Okay, because these commandments are very important, okay? And everywhere, what any situation you are, no matter how good or dangerous or whatever it is, you could always get out of it. You could always sort of like with your power, right?
You always hit yourself in the eye.
Hit yourself in the eye, or God sends you signs, okay? God, if you have, even if you look at it in a metaphorical way, if you have God's presence with you, you'll be strong and you'll be able to go through everything in life.
He was heard to comment this morning. Oh, the knots.
The knots, right?
Right,
very good.
One thing I've always wondered about was the blue thread. How did they know what shellfish or whatever it was that dye came from? And we went all these years where nobody had.
Oh yeah, the blue thing came from I don't think it's shellfish. I think it was like a snail.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a special snail that they actually found it a few years ago in the Dor Beach. The Dor Beach is in Israel. It's like it was a commercial port back then, and the Romans and the Greeks used to import this into Israel because the Jews needed that blue thread to put the Mediterranean Sea, okay, and then the obligations, like all these, the tzitzit has to be, one of them has to be blue, okay, and actually in the Torah portion of Korach, the one that it goes down the drain, the land opens up. He comes and argues, no, it should all be blue, okay? And they say, oh, you're trying to be too righteous. You're trying to, to show that you're so righteous. So, the land opens up and swallows him.
The snail through the centuries has always been a trinket on a chain, a snail, and that could be because of where the color came from, because it would be a gold snail.
Well, but women use the color of these snails to do, for eyelashes, for a lot of cosmetics. They knew back then that the snails and these products.
How the Phoenicians made all their money. That's how the Phoenicians made all their money.
Right. They knew how to grow these things as well.
But that was the only source of the blue.
Yeah, no, you're not allowed to do the blue from anything else. You can't just take a different blue color. It has to be from that.
So
okay.
Do they have the blue snail for escargot?
No, it's not kosher. Yeah.
You like some blue escargot?
Yeah. Steve, you're creating a lot of commotion here today. Okay, on page 44, okay, we have the blessing after the Shema, right? We had two blessings at the beginning. We had the Shema, the 3 paragraphs of the Shema, and now we have the 2 blessings after. So the first one, the first blessing after, okay, is about the redemption of the people of Israel, okay, you can see at the bottom of page 44, and so it is written, Adonai has rescued Jacob and redeemed him from the hand of those more powerful than he. Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you God, who redeemed the people Israel. So this is about blessing. And on page 45, okay, we have the second blessing, which is peace in the night. okay? And as we go to sleep, okay, or end our evening prayers, I said every prayer ends with peace. So we have that Tehashkivenu, okay, beautiful prayers. As we go to sleep, we say this: allow us, Adonai, our God, to sleep peacefully, awaken us to life, O sovereign. Spread over us your canopy of peace. Restore us with your good counsel and save us for the sake of your name. Shield us. Some omit on Shabbat, but we, on a weekday you say this: remove from us enemies, pestilence, war, starvation, and sorrow, and remove the evil forces that surround us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you, God, watch over and deliver us, and you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Ensure our going and coming for life and peace, now and forever. May you spread over us your canopy of peace. Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, God, who spreads the canopy of peace over us, over all the people of Israel, and over Jerusalem. Okay, so this is sort of like the ending way of the Shema, the blessing. In the morning, it's a little bit different. We only have the redemption blessing, and then we move into the Amida. So the structure of the prayer is the Shema and its blessings before and after, and then the Amida, the prayer where you stand and you speak directly to God. Okay, so like it's an interesting structure of the prayer that first you start with the Shema, affirming God's kingdom, affirming his mitzvot, affirming that we need to remember him, we need to follow him. He's our Redeemer, okay? He's the one that loves Israel. He's the one that gives us peace. And then we follow into the Amida where we go into dialogue with God. We start asking God for things, okay? We start, like a discussion. So we don't start right away with the talk and the discussion. First, we talk to God and we praise him, and it's like courting someone, okay? First you start, with the praises, with building a relationship, with getting to know each other, and only then you go into asking and to actual, what do I need from you, God? Can you help me get it? Okay, so that's sort of like the structure of the way the prayers is done. First the Shema, its prayers, and then the Amida, where you stand and talk to God directly in the prayer. Okay? Any other questions about the Shema and the prayers? And next week we're going to talk about other daily and Shabbat prayers. Very good. Okay, let's just end this. And